When my phone screen lit up, I was sitting at my desk organizing the quarterly report. The WeChat notification sound rang 7 or 8 times in a row. I opened the company group chat. The message was from the CEO's assistant, Wendy Fong. At first, I thought it was just another routine work notice. I casually scrolled up. Then my entire body froze in my chair. Wendy's message was very clear. After company review, the technical department's Ethan Lin is hereby dismissed due to improper work attitude and repeated violations of company rules. HR is requested to coordinate the related procedures. Effective immediately. I stared at those lines for a full half-minute. The office air conditioner hummed. Keyboard sounds rose and fell around me. No one looked up. My finger hovered above the screen, trembling slightly. Across from me, the technical department supervisor, Daniel Zhang, leaned over from his workstation. "Ethan, did you see the group message?" His voice was very low, as if afraid someone might hear. I nodded. "I saw it." Daniel looked around, then quickly shrank back to his own desk. "Take care of yourself. I can't do anything about this." I took a deep breath and opened Vivian Su's profile. Vivian Su was the company president. She was also my senior from the same university. I had joined this company because she personally interviewed me. I sent her a message. "President Su, did you know about the dismissal notice Assistant Fong posted in the company group?" After sending it, I stared at the chat window. The status changed from sent to read. Vivian did not reply. I waited 5 minutes and sent another message. "President Su, I have worked at this company for 3 years. My performance rating has been A every quarter. I want to know the specific reason." Still read. Still no reply. I opened the company group again. Wendy Fong had posted another message. "Employee Ethan Lin, please complete resignation procedures as soon as possible. Handover must be finished before the end of today." The group was completely silent. No one said a word. I opened the member list. Vivian Su's avatar was lit up. Online. She was in the group. She saw every message. She had approved it. I turned off my phone and stood. Everyone in the office lowered their heads. No one dared meet my eyes. I walked to Wendy Fong's office and knocked. "Come in." Wendy sat behind her desk, looking at her phone. When she saw it was me, her face showed no expression. "Ethan Lin, what is it?" "Assistant Fong, I want to ask why I was dismissed." Wendy put down her phone and folded her hands on the desk. The group notice was very clear. Improper work attitude. Repeated violations of company rules. "Which company rules exactly? You were late 3 times last month. You also took 2 days off this month." I froze. The late arrivals were because of subway failures. I submitted proof. The leave was because my father was hospitalized. I submitted hospital documents. Wendy lifted her chin slightly. "The company has company rules. Late is late. Leave affects work progress. These are facts. What about my performance? I have had a ratings for 3 consecutive quarters. The client feedback on the project I just took over this quarter was also excellent." Wendy gave a small smile. "Performance is in the past. It does not represent your current work attitude." She was about to say more when my phone suddenly vibrated. I lowered my head. Vivian Su had posted one message in the group. Only 2 words. "Received." I stared at those 2 words. My fingers tightened one by one. Wendy saw the message too. She looked up at me. "Do you have any other questions?" I did not answer her. I turned and walked out, returning to my desk. Daniel handed me a handover checklist. "Ethan, HR asked me to give this to you." I took it. More than 20 handover items were listed densely across the page. In 3 years at the company, I had handled at least a dozen projects. There was no way to complete handover in 1 day. Daniel looked at me, wanting to say something. In the end, he only patted my shoulder. "Brother, sorry." I placed the checklist on my desk and picked up my phone. In the company group, Wendy had posted again. "Employee Ethan Lin, please complete handover before 6 p.m. Any delay will be handled according to company rules." I tapped the top right of the group chat, scrolled down, and found the option to leave the group. My finger stayed above the screen for 2 seconds. Then I pressed it. A confirmation box appeared. "Are you sure you want to leave this group chat?" I tapped confirm. The screen flashed. The group disappeared from my message list. The office remained silent. Keyboard sounds continued rising and falling. I packed the personal belongings on my desk. A water cup. A notebook. A charger. 3 years. And that was all. When I walked out of the company doors holding my things, the young receptionist looked up at me, then quickly lowered her head. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. As the metal doors closed, I heard Wendy Fong's voice from behind me. Finally gone. I stood inside the elevator, watching the floor numbers fall one by one. My phone vibrated. A private message from Vivian Su. I opened it. Ethan, the company's decision is not something I can change. Take care of yourself. I stared at that message for a long time. When the elevator doors opened on the first floor, I walked out and stood at the entrance of the office building. The sunlight outside was piercing. I narrowed my eyes. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was a bank text. Mortgage deduction reminder. I closed the message, put the phone into my pocket, stopped a taxi, and gave an address. The car left the CBD, crossed an overpass, and entered the old district. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Young man, off work early today? I said nothing. The car stopped in front of an old residential building. I paid, got out, and went upstairs. When the door opened, the living room smelled of medicine. I changed into slippers and walked into my father's room. He was lying in bed. Medicine bottles filled the bedside table. Seeing me home, he struggled to sit up. Why are you back so early today? I placed my things on the table. Dad, I resigned. He froze. Resigned? You were doing fine. Why resign? I sat beside the bed. I wanted a change of environment. My father looked at me for a while but did not press. He lay back down and stared at the ceiling. If you're tired, rest for a while. I still have my pension. You don't need to worry too much about me. I tucked the blanket around him. Don't think too much. Just focus on getting better. After leaving his room, I returned to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I opened my phone. The company group was gone. Several co-workers had sent private messages. Liam Lee wrote, Ethan, did you really leave? Olivia Zhao wrote, Ethan, what happened? Why did Wendy Fong suddenly post that notice? Henry He wrote, brother, you were too impulsive. You should have at least asked clearly before leaving the group. I replied to each one. Then turned off WeChat. The black screen reflected my face. I threw the phone aside and lay flat on the bed. There were several cracks on the ceiling, stretching from the corner toward the light. I closed my eyes. All I could see was Wendy Fong's message in the group. And Vivian Su's 2 words. Received. I turned over and buried my face in the pillow. The phone suddenly rang again. I picked it up. An unfamiliar number. After hesitating, I answered. Hello? A steady male voice came from the other end. Is this Mr. Ethan Lin? Yes. I am Victor Chen from Chiming Capital. I froze. Chiming Capital was the company's largest investor, holding 37% of the shares. I had only seen Victor Chen's name in internal documents. I had never spoken to him. Mr. Chen, what can I do for you? The other side was silent for several seconds. Mr. Lin, I would like to meet you. Tomorrow morning at 10. Are you available? I sat up. Mr. Chen, I don't quite understand. I have already been dismissed by the company. Why are you looking for me? Victor interrupted me. I know. That is exactly why I want to meet you. His tone was calm, but I heard something unusual in it. My fingers tightened around the phone. All right. Tomorrow morning at 10. Where? I will send you the address. The call ended. I stared at the screen. A few seconds later, a text arrived with the address of a CAF. I put down the phone and lay back again. Outside the window, the sky gradually darkened. Streetlights came on. Orange light fell through the curtains onto the floor. I did not know what would happen tomorrow. But I had a feeling that Wendy Fong kicking me out of the company was far from over. The next morning at 7, my alarm woke me. Out of habit, I reached for my phone to check the work group. Only after opening WeChat did I remember. I was no longer in that group. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, turned off the alarm, and got up. My father was still sleeping. His breathing was heavy, mixed with phlegm. I quietly opened his door and checked the medicine bottles on his bedside table. Only 3 blood pressure pills remained. I would need to go to the pharmacy tomorrow. I cooked a pot of porridge, left a bowl for him on the table, sealed it with plastic wrap, and placed a note beside it. When I left home, it was only 8:30. Still an hour and a half before my meeting with Victor. I stood downstairs and smoked a cigarette. Across the street, the breakfast shop owner was frying dough sticks. Smoke and oil drifted over in the wind. She saw me and waved. "Little Ethan, not going to work today? I have something to do." She handed me a fried dough stick. "How is your father's health?" "Same as before. Take it slowly. No need to rush." I took a bite. The oil melted in my mouth. The owner wiped her hands and lowered her voice. "Your mother came yesterday. She stood downstairs for a while, then left." My chewing paused. "What did she come for?" "I'm not sure. She did not go upstairs. She stood there for 10 minutes or so and left." I finished the dough stick in a few bites, paid, and stopped a taxi. The CAF Victor Chen chose was in the south of the city, about 40 minutes from where I lived. When the car passed my company's office building, I instinctively turned to look. In the CAF downstairs, Wendy Fong was sitting by the window. Across from her sat a man. The car moved too fast. I did not see his face. The CAF Victor chose was on a quiet street, with 2 osmanthus trees planted by the entrance. When I pushed the door open, the server came over. "Sir, how many?" "I'm meeting someone." I swept my eyes across the room. In the corner sat a man in his 40s. He wore a dark gray shirt and no tie. A cup of black coffee sat before him. When he saw me, he stood. "Mr. Lin, this way." I sat opposite him. Victor Chen looked younger than I had imagined. His hair was carefully combed. He wore silver-rimmed glasses. He gestured for the server to bring me coffee, then got straight to the point. "Mr. Lin, I saw Wendy Fong's group message yesterday." My hand tightened around the cup. "Mr. Chen, did you ask me here because of that?" Victor did not directly answer. He took a document from his briefcase and pushed it to me. "Look at this first." I opened it. It was the investment agreement between Qiming Capital and our company. I turned to the final page and saw a clause circled in red. If the invested company undergoes major personnel changes, the investor has the right to unilaterally terminate the investment agreement. I looked up at him. "What does this clause have to do with me?" Victor leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Ethan Lin, you should know why your company secured Qiming Capital's investment last year." I was silent for a few seconds. "Because of President Su?" "Yes. Because of Vivian Su's business philosophy, the company's direction, and the technical team. We valued the technical team's ability." Victor picked up his coffee, drank, then put it down. "Especially you." I froze. Victor continued, "Last year, your company's smart warehousing system project. You independently completed the technical solution. Later, Wendy Fong reported it to Vivian Su and turned it into a collective achievement of the technical department." He looked at me calmly. "Did you know that?" I said nothing. Of course I knew. For that project, I stayed up for 3 months. From requirement analysis to architecture design. From coding to testing and deployment. I completed 80% of the work alone. But during the final project report, Wendy put my name at the very end of the technical team list. I went to Vivian. Vivian said Wendy was the overall project lead, so the list was hers to decide. That day, Vivian patted my shoulder and said, "Next time, I'll make sure you get separate credit." So I said nothing more. Victor saw my expression and nodded. "Looks like you know." He collected that document and took out another. "These are the project progress reports I received over the past 6 months. Every one has your name on it. But the content is very different from the original proposals you submitted to the company." I opened the file. There were dense annotations everywhere. Victor's calm voice continued. "Wendy Fong modified the progress reports before sending them to us. I saw your original proposals through other channels." He paused. "So I know who was truly doing the work." I closed the document and tapped my fingers lightly on the table. "Mr. Chen, what exactly do you want from me?" Victor slowly drank another mouthful of coffee. Then he put down the cup and looked into my eyes. "Ethan Lin, Wendy Fong dismissed you, and Vivian Su approved it. Do you know what that means?" I shook my head. Victor smiled faintly, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "It means those 2 women did not take you seriously. And they did not take me seriously either." His fingers tapped lightly on the table. I invested so much money into this company, and they fired the core technical lead without even informing me. And they still expect me to keep investing? My heartbeat began to quicken. Mr. Chen, you mean? Victor stood and placed the documents back into his briefcase. My meaning is simple. This afternoon, Chiming Capital will formally notify Vivian Su. We are withdrawing our investment. I sat there as if fixed in place. Victor picked up his briefcase and stopped beside me. Mr. Lin, Wendy Fong thought firing you was just one sentence. Vivian Su thought a silent approval could settle the matter. He patted my shoulder. I will let them know that some people's value is not something they can casually deny. Then Victor left. I sat alone in the CAF. The coffee before me had gone cold. A server came over and asked if I wanted a refill. I waved her away. I stared at the water marks on the table while my mind spun rapidly. Victor Chen was going to withdraw. Chiming Capital held 37% of the company's shares. The largest investor. Once they withdrew, the company's cash flow would break within 3 months. Vivian could not possibly be unaware of that consequence. Wendy could not be unaware either. But they still fired me. Why? I opened WeChat and entered Vivian's chat. Her last message was still there. Ethan, the company's decision is not something I can change. Take care of yourself. I stared at it and suddenly felt something was wrong. I knew Vivian's personality. She was not someone who compromised easily. When the company was first founded, she carried all the pressure alone and convinced people who did not believe in her. How could she obey Wendy Fong so completely? I turned off the phone, stood, and walked out of the CAF. The sunlight outside was harsh, whitening the asphalt. I stood by the road, my mind a mess. The phone rang again. This time, it was Liam Lee. I answered. His voice was low, as if he was hiding somewhere. Ethan, bad news. What happened? Wendy held a meeting this morning and said you were fired. She also said that before you left, you leaked company technical materials. My fingers tightened hard around the phone. She said what? She said you did not complete normal handover and secretly took core company data. She also said the company has already called the police. I stood on the street, people walking past me on both sides. Sunlight shone on my body. But I felt cold all over. Liam continued, Ethan, think of something quickly. Wendy Fong is trying to kill you. I forced myself to calm down. Liam, keep an eye on the company for me. Tell me immediately if anything happens. All right. Be careful. The call ended. I stood by the road, watching the traffic light flash across the street. Wendy Fong said I leaked technical materials. If that accusation stuck, I would not only be finished in this industry. I could also face legal action. I opened my contacts and found Henry He. He worked in the company's legal department, and we had a decent relationship. The call rang several times before connecting. Henry's voice was very low, as if he feared being overheard. Ethan, you know? What do I know? Wendy Fong said I leaked company data. What exactly is going on? This morning, Wendy called legal over and said before leaving, you downloaded a large number of internal files. She also said you sent those files to a competitor's email. I laughed from anger. What evidence does she have? She said technical checked your office computer and found a large number of download records the night before you left. I remembered. The night before leaving, I had indeed worked overtime very late. But that was to catch up on project progress. The files I downloaded were development documents needed for the project. All of them were stored on the company server. I never took anything away. I told Henry this. The other end was silent for a few seconds. Ethan, I believe you. But Wendy is very firm. She says she will pursue this to the end. I took a deep breath. What about Vivian? What did President Su say? President Su did not come to the company today. Wendy said she has full authority to handle it. My sense that something was wrong grew stronger. Vivian did not come. Wendy had full authority. When I was fired, Vivian approved it silently. Now Wendy was framing me for leaking company data. Everything was too convenient. I hung up, squatted by the road, and lit a cigarette. Nicotine rushed into my lungs and slightly pressed down my irritation. After smoking, I stood, crushed the cigarette butt under my shoe, stopped a taxi, and gave an address. I was going to the company. I needed to ask face to face. The car sped along the overpass. City scenery flew backward outside the window. I took out my phone and sent Vivian another message. President Su, Wendy Fong says I leaked company materials. Did you know about this? The message was read. Still no reply. I stared at the word read, and the fire in my chest surged up. 3 years ago, when Vivian asked me to join the company, she said one sentence, Ethan Lin, I know your technical ability better than anyone. From now on, the company's technology depends on you. 3 years later, she would not even reply to my message. The car stopped downstairs. I paid, got out, and looked up at the 30-story office building. Sunlight reflected harshly from the glass curtain wall. I pushed through the revolving door and entered the lobby. The receptionist's expression changed the moment she saw me. Ethan Lin? Why are you? I ignored her and walked straight toward the elevator. The elevator doors opened. I was about to enter when someone walked out. I ran right into Wendy Fong. She wore a white suit jacket and held a briefcase. Behind her were 2 security guards. When she saw me, her steps paused. Then the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Ethan Lin, you still have the face to come back. I stared at her and spoke word by word. Wendy Fong, you said I leaked company data. Do you have evidence? Wendy laughed. Evidence? The technical department already checked your computer. The download records are clear. She pulled a sheet of paper from her briefcase and handed it to me. See for yourself how many files you downloaded the night before leaving. I glanced at it. Dozens of file names. Download times all between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. I had indeed downloaded these files. But they were all for work. I looked up at her. These files were required for my project. They were all stored on the company server. I did not take anything away. Wendy raised a brow. You say you didn't take anything, so we should believe you? Then where are the files now? On the server. You can check. Wendy turned and glanced at the security guards behind her. The server files were deleted this morning. I froze. What did you say? I said the files you downloaded were deleted from the server this morning. Technical checked the logs. The deletion operation used your account. Wendy looked at me, mockery in her eyes. Ethan Lin, you downloaded the files, deleted the server backup, and sent them to a competitor. That logic chain is clear enough, right? I stood there, cold from head to toe. I had never logged into the server last night. Someone had stolen my account. But I knew that saying anything now was useless. All the evidence pointed to me. Seeing me silent, Wendy's smile deepened. You can leave. The company's legal department will contact you. She walked around me toward the door. I followed and grabbed her arm. Wendy Fong, why are you doing this? Wendy turned, shook off my hand, and patted the spot I touched with faint disgust. What did I do? I'm only following company rules to handle a violating employee. She leaned close and lowered her voice. Ethan Lin, there are some things you had better not ask. Asking benefits no one. Then she turned and left. The 2 security guards blocked my way, expressionless. I stood in the lobby, watching Wendy get into a car and leave the parking lot. My phone rang again. Victor Chen had sent a message. Mr. Lin, the withdrawal notice has been sent to Vivian Su. Next, things may get lively. I stared at that message, my fingers slowly tightening. Lively? This was about to explode. I left the revolving door and stood on the steps outside. The sunlight was so bright I could barely open my eyes. I sat there for a while, took out my cigarette box, and found it empty. The phone rang again. This time, Olivia Zhao. Ethan, where are you? Downstairs at the company. Don't leave. I need to tell you something. High heels clicked in the background. Olivia's voice was very low. Wait for me at the CAF behind the building. I'll come down right away. She hung up. I walked around to the back of the building. The CAF was quiet. I chose a seat by the window. 5 minutes later, Olivia pushed open the door. She wore a deep blue business suit and held a folder. Her expression was tense. She sat opposite me, placed the folder on the table, and looked around. Ethan, Wendy Fong set you up. I picked up the lemon water before me and drank. I know. Olivia pushed the folder to me. Take this home and look at it. I opened it. Inside was a project approval application. Project name, Smart Park Management System. Approval date, 3 months ago. I turned to the final page and saw the project lead signature. It was my name. But I did not remember ever signing this document. Olivia pointed at the signature. That isn't your signature, right? I examined it carefully and shook my head. No. It imitates my handwriting, but it is not mine. Olivia took a deep breath. This project was created by Wendy 3 months ago. It never went through technical department review. It was sent directly to President Su. President Su signed the approval, and Wendy used the project to apply for a city technology subsidy. Amount, 8 million yuan. My head snapped up. 8 million? Olivia nodded. Yes. 8 million. The subsidy arrived last month. But to this day, the project does not even have one line of code written. She watched my expression and continued, in the application materials, Wendy listed you as the core technical lead. All technical solutions were under your name. My fingers tightened slowly, wrinkling the paper. Why would she do that? Olivia bit her lip. Because your reputation in the technical department is the best. If the review department calls the company to verify, everyone will say you are the technical backbone. That makes the project's technical plan credible. She wiped her hands with a tissue. Now the project cannot continue, and the subsidy money was misappropriated by Wendy. She needs someone to take the blame. My mind exploded. So she fired me because she was afraid I would discover the problem if I stayed? Olivia nodded. Yes. And she doesn't just want to fire you. She wants to ruin your reputation too. That way, no one will believe anything you say. She looked at me, fear in her eyes. You weren't at the company this morning. You don't know what kind of meeting Wendy held. She already pinned the data leak accusation on you. The entire company is talking. I closed the folder and pushed it back. You gave me these things. Aren't you afraid Wendy will find out? Olivia gave a bitter smile. Of course I'm afraid. But I'm even more afraid that when something happens later, not one person will dare tell the truth. She stood and hugged the folder to her chest. I copied everything I could. I still have to put the originals back, otherwise Wendy will suspect me. At the door, she turned back. One more thing. What? President Su did not come to the company today. But Wendy said President Su authorized her to handle the data leak incident fully. A lot of people believed it. After Olivia left, I sat in the CAF staring out the window. 8 million in subsidy funds. A fake project. A forged signature. Wendy Fong had set up a very large trap. I opened Vivian's WeChat and sent another message. President Su, I need to speak with you face to face about the Smart Park project. This time, Vivian replied. Ethan, you are not suitable to come to the company right now. Let's talk after some time. I stared at that line. Then typed, President Su, Wendy Fong forged my signature to apply for 8 million yuan in technology subsidies. The project is fake. The money has been misappropriated. After the message was sent, the chat was silent for a long time. Then Vivian replied with one line. I know. Only 4 words. I know. I stared at those words and felt my blood turn cold. She knew. She actually knew. I grabbed the phone, wanting to call her. My finger pressed the dial button. Then stopped. What was the use of calling? She already knew. But she did not stop it. Did not investigate. Did not tell me. She was protecting Wendy Fong. Once that thought appeared, it grew like weeds. I leaned back in the chair and felt exhaustion seep from the cracks in my bones. 3 years. I had worked at this company for 3 years. Working past midnight was normal. I had not had a real weekend in ages. My father was hospitalized and I took 2 days off. Wendy said I violated company rules. I spent 3 months building a project. She put my name at the bottom. Now she wanted me to take an 8 million yuan blame. And Vivian Su, the senior I had trusted for 3 years, she knew everything. And chose silence. The phone rang again. Victor Chen. I answered, voice hoarse. Mr. Chen. Mr. Lin, you sound unwell. I'm fine. Go ahead. The withdrawal notice has officially been sent. Vivian Su's secretary signed for it. Wendy should have received the news too. Victor's voice was calm, as if talking about something trivial. Mr. Lin, things may get lively now. Prepare yourself. I was silent for several seconds. Mr. Chen, I want to ask you something. Go ahead. Are you withdrawing investment only because I was fired? The other side was quiet for a moment. Then Victor laughed softly. Ethan Lin, you are smart. His voice lowered. I invested in this company because of Vivian Su's ability and your technology. But now, Vivian has been hollowed out by Wendy Fong, and you have been kicked out. What is left of this company? He paused, coldness entering his tone. And besides, I discovered Wendy Fong's financial tricks long ago. I originally planned to wait for the right time. But since she moved first, there is no need to wait. My heart beat faster. You mean Wendy Fong has financial problems too? Not just finance. I knew about her misappropriation of subsidy funds last month. Victor's voice carried a trace of mockery. She thought her 8 million yuan subsidy transfer was clean. In reality, it is full of holes. My mind spun. Victor knew Wendy had misappropriated the subsidy. He knew last month. But what was he waiting for? Before I could ask, Victor continued. Ethan, I can help you reverse the accusation Wendy put on you. I gripped the phone. But I have one condition. What condition? I need you to do one thing for me. Victor's voice was calm and clear. I need you to find out whether Wendy Fong has someone behind her. My heart skipped. You think someone is behind Wendy? Yes. And that person is likely inside the company, with a high position. Otherwise, Wendy could not have hidden so much from Vivian Su. Victor paused. I have dealt with Vivian Su many times. She is not someone who gets hollowed out easily. Unless someone she trusts betrayed her. A thought flashed through my mind. Someone Vivian trusted. Wendy was personally promoted by Vivian, from intern to CEO assistant in 3 years. Everyone in the company knew Vivian trusted her. But what if Wendy had betrayed Vivian? The thought sent a chill through me. Mr. Chen, who do you suspect? The other end was silent for a few seconds. I have no evidence, but I have a direction. Victor lowered his voice. Your company's deputy general manager in charge of finance, Marcus Zhou. Do you know him? Of course I knew him. Marcus Zhou was a company veteran. He had started the business with Vivian. Inside the company, his status was second only to hers. He managed finance and administration, with heavy overlap with Wendy's work. I know him. Good. Pay attention to him. I think there is something unusual between him and Wendy Fong. Victor's tone returned to calm. Ethan, right now Wendy has pushed you into a passive position. But she made one fatal mistake. What mistake? She pushed you to my side. And I know all of her secrets. After the call ended, I sat in the CAF and sorted everything from beginning to end. Wendy had misappropriated subsidy funds and needed someone to take the blame. She chose me. Vivian knew, but approved silently. Victor withdrew investment, outwardly because I was fired, but actually because he had long discovered Wendy's problems. And behind Wendy, there might be Marcus Zhou. Everything connected. But one question remained. Why did Vivian protect Wendy? She clearly knew Wendy was misappropriating public funds, creating a fake project, and framing her own employee. Why did she allow it? I took out my phone, wanting to send Vivian another message. But my fingers hovered above the keyboard, not knowing what to type. Then the screen lit up. Liam sent, Ethan, something huge happened. Chiming Capital's withdrawal news reached the company. The whole company exploded. Olivia sent, Ethan, Wendy just smashed a cup in her office. After receiving the withdrawal notice, she went crazy. I stared at the 2 messages and smiled. Then I walked out of the CAF. At some point, drizzle had begun falling. The road was wet. I stood under the eaves and watched the rain slant down. My phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. I answered. A woman's voice came through. Very soft. As if afraid someone might hear. Ethan Lin, I'm President Su's housekeeper. President Su asked me to pass you a message. My heartbeat quickened. What message? President Su says, be careful of Wendy Fong. What Wendy is doing now is something even President Su cannot control anymore. The call ended. I stood in the rain, watching the phone screen darken. Vivian told me to be careful of Wendy. She said Wendy's actions were beyond her control. Then why had she approved before? What was she afraid of? Rain dripped from the eaves and hit my shoulder. I looked up at the gray sky. Then stopped a taxi. I had to go somewhere. I had to find Vivian Su. The taxi moved through the rain. The windshield wipers swung rhythmically. Leaning against the seat, I repeatedly replayed the message Vivian had sent through her housekeeper. Be careful of Wendy Fong. What she is doing, even I cannot control anymore. That sentence carried too much information. Vivian did not refuse to act. She could not act. Then why? Did Wendy have leverage over her? Or was there another reason? The car stopped at Vivian's residential compound. It was a high-end neighborhood with security guards at the gate. I got out and walked to the guard booth. The guard looked at me. Who are you looking for? Vivian Sue, Building 7, 12th floor. The guard picked up the intercom, spoke a few lines, then put it down. President Sue is not seeing visitors today. I stood at the entrance, rain dripping from my hair. I took out my phone and called Vivian. It rang for a long time, then was hung up. A message arrived immediately. Ethan, I cannot see you right now. Go back first. I will contact you in a few days. I stared at it and typed one line. President Sue, what are you afraid of? The chat was silent for a long time. Then Vivian replied, Ethan, some things are not as simple as you think. The person behind Wendy Fong is not someone you can afford to provoke. My blood rushed to my head. The person behind Wendy was not someone I could provoke. Victor suspected Marcus Joe. Vivian said Wendy's backer was untouchable. Then who exactly was it? My phone rang again. Victor Chen. I answered. My voice trembled slightly. Mr. Chen. Ethan, did you go to see Vivian Sue? I froze. How did you know? Vivian called me just now. She said you went to find her. There was a trace of coldness in Victor's voice. Ethan, don't go to Vivian for now. Her situation is more complicated than I expected. I waited. Do you know Vivian's husband? I froze. Vivian's husband? In 3 years at the company, I had never heard Vivian mention a husband. I thought she was single. President Sue is married? Victor laughed. The laugh carried ridicule. She is. And her husband is Wendy Fong's biological elder brother. I stood there as if struck by lightning. Victor continued, Wendy Fong's real surname is not Fong. She is Sue Wanqing, Vivian Sue's husband's younger sister. Vivian is being controlled by her husband and Wendy together. Rain hit my face. I barely felt it. Now I finally understood why Vivian approved Wendy firing me. Why she said Wendy's backer was not someone I could provoke. Why she said things were not so simple. Because the person controlling her was her husband. Her family. Victor's voice remained calm. Ethan, now you know. This trap is much bigger than you imagined. I stood in the rain, completely soaked. The phone light reflected my pale face. I heard my own voice, as if from far away. Mr. Chen, what should I do next? After several seconds, Victor said 4 words. Go back to the company. Make noise. The taxi turned around in the rain and headed toward the company. I sat in the back seat, clothes soaked through. The seat beneath me darkened with water. The driver glanced at me several times through the mirror but said nothing. My mind replayed Victor's words. Vivian's husband was Wendy Fong's brother. Wendy Fong was not Fong. She was Sue Wanqing. She had changed her surname when she joined the company. No one in the company knew. Vivian had hidden it from everyone. Victor said Vivian's husband was Gregory Sue, 8 years older than Vivian, the owner of a building materials company. When Vivian started her business 3 years ago, Gregory invested money and became an anonymous shareholder. Later, Wendy entered the company, and Gregory forced Vivian to make her CEO assistant. Vivian did not want to. But Gregory threatened her with divorce. Gregory Sue has certain leverage over Vivian. I don't know what exactly, but it is enough to ruin her reputation in business. So Vivian was hollowed out by Wendy. It is not that she did not want to resist. She did not dare. Victor's words echoed in my ears. Everything made sense. Why Wendy dared to act recklessly inside the company. Why Vivian approved everything silently. Why Wendy said, there are some things you had better not ask. Behind Wendy stood Vivian's husband. The taxi stopped downstairs. I paid and got out. The rain had weakened, but the sky remained dark. I stood before the office building and looked up. Lead gray clouds reflected on the glass wall. I pushed through the revolving door and entered. The receptionist's face instantly tensed. Ethan Lin, why are you here again? I ignored her and went straight to the elevator. She chased me. Ethan, Assistant Fong said you can't enter the company. I pressed the elevator button and turned to look at her. Assistant Fong said that? Yes. She said you were already fired and suspected of leaking company secrets. The company will hold you responsible. When she said this, her eyes flickered, avoiding mine. The elevator dinged open. I stepped in and pressed the 18th floor. The receptionist stood outside, opened her mouth, but did not follow. The doors closed. Floor numbers climbed. At the 18th floor, the doors opened. I entered the office area. The whole office instantly went silent. Every gaze landed on me. Keyboard sounds stopped. Phone calls stopped. Even the copier stopped. I walked through the aisle toward Wendy's office. Liam stood from his desk, lips moving as if wanting to speak. I shook my head at him. Olivia sat in a corner, hand covering her mouth, eyes wide. I reached Wendy's office and pushed open the door. Wendy sat behind her desk with several files spread before her. Seeing me, her face changed instantly. "Ethan Lin, who let you in?" I did not answer. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. Wendy stood and pressed her fingers against the landline. "If you do not leave, I will call security." I walked to her desk and leaned forward with both hands on the tabletop. "Wendy Fong." "No, I should call you Su Wanqing." Her face turned white at once. Her fingers left the phone and slowly gripped the desk edge. She stared at me, eyes flickering. "You investigated me?" I straightened and took out my phone, placing it on the desk. "I investigated not only you. I also investigated your brother, Gregory Su." Wendy's gaze fell on my phone. Her lips pressed into a line. "What do you want?" "What do I want? I should be asking you that." I sat opposite her and lit up the phone screen. On it was a document Victor had sent me. Wendy looked once. The color drained from her face. "How do you have this?" I took back the phone and leaned against the chair. "The Smart Park Management System Project Approval Application. The project lead is signed with my name. But that signature was not mine." I stared into her eyes. "You forged my signature, applied for 8 million yuan in technology subsidies, created a fake project, and moved the money elsewhere. You know exactly where the money went." Wendy tapped her fingers twice on the desk. Then she suddenly smiled. She sat back, folded her hands calmly, and regained that composed posture. "Ethan Lin, so what if you know?" She tilted her head slightly, mockery in her eyes. "Do you have proof? The signature is yours. When the project was approved, you were still at the company. The technical plan was written by you. How do you prove you were not the project lead?" Her voice was soft. But every word was a needle. "You want to report me? To whom?" "The company is your direct superior. President Su is the company's legal representative. The subsidy money was applied for by the company. As the project lead, if something goes wrong, you are the first to be held responsible." I sat there and looked at her. She was right. Procedurally, I was the project lead. Every document bore my name. Every technical plan was under my signature. Proving I knew nothing would be extremely difficult. But Victor had taught me one sentence. When someone frames you, do not rush to prove your innocence. Pull the person framing you into the water. I slowly spoke. "Su Wanqing, you're right. It will be very hard for me to prove I didn't know." I paused. "But there is one thing that will be very hard for you to prove too." Wendy's smile stiffened for an instant. "What? Where did the 8 million yuan subsidy go?" I opened another document on my phone and pushed it before her. "This is the City Science and Technology Bureau's project inspection notice. Starting next Monday, the Bureau will come to the company to inspect the progress of the Smart Park project." Wendy's pupils contracted. I continued, "The project has not written one line of code. When the Bureau arrives, what are you going to say?" She said nothing. The rhythm of her fingers tapping the desk became faster. I stood and leaned over the table, looking down at her. "And Chiming Capital withdrew today. You know that, right?" Wendy looked up, panic flashing in her eyes. "What does that have to do with you?" "Everything." I smiled. Before withdrawing, Victor Chen carefully checked the company's financial data. He found some very interesting things in the annual audit report. Wendy's expression became extremely ugly. I looked into her eyes and said word by word, "Part of the subsidy money you misappropriated went into an account. The account holder is your brother, Gregory Su." Wendy stood so suddenly her chair slid backward and hit the wall with an ugly sound. She stared at me, chest rising and falling violently. "You're lying. You know whether I am lying." I opened the office door and looked back at her. "Wendy Fong, you wanted me to take the blame. I accept that. But this blame is too heavy. I'm afraid when the time comes, you won't be able to catch it. I walked out. Everyone in the office followed me with their eyes. I crossed the aisle, took a few steps, then stopped. Turning around, I raised my voice. Everyone. Wendy Fong just claimed I leaked company technical materials. The office became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I looked around. Liam, Olivia, Henry, and the brothers from the technical department. I worked at this company for 3 years. I handled at least 8 or 10 projects. Many of you stayed up with me and worked overtime with me. I paused, my voice becoming calm. You know whether I ever leaked company data. Wendy said I downloaded files and deleted server backups. But the night before I left, I was working overtime writing code. The server operation records can be checked by technical. After saying that, I turned toward the elevator. Behind me, whispers rose. The elevator doors opened. I entered. Before they closed, I saw Wendy standing at her office door, face ashen. The elevator descended. Inside, I gripped my phone tightly. What I said just now had been improvised. The accusation of leaking data had to be countered publicly. I could not let her establish public opinion inside the company. As for my final sentence, I deliberately left it unfinished. Whether technical could find the server operation records, I was not sure. But once I said it, Wendy would definitely investigate. And once she investigated, she would expose a flaw. When I reached the first floor and walked outside, the rain had stopped. The ground was wet, and the air smelled of soil mixed with gasoline. My phone rang. Victor Chen. Ethan, how did it go? I made noise. I briefly told him about the conversation in Wendy's office. After listening, Victor was silent for several seconds. You did well, but it is still missing something. What? Your final line about server operation records. Wendy will verify it. Technical will check, but the result may not favor you. Because the deletion operation was indeed performed using your account. Technically, it is very hard to prove the person operating the computer was not you. My heart sank. What do we do? Simple. Victor spoke slowly. You do not need to prove the operator was not you. You only need to prove the operator was Wendy Fong. I froze. Wendy Fong? Yes. The night before you left, who else was working overtime besides you? I recalled carefully. That night, I worked until 2 in the morning. At one point, I went to the pantry. I saw Wendy's office lights on. Wendy Fong. She was also at the company that night. Victor chuckled. Then that is it. Your file download records and the file deletion records are continuous in time. If the two actions were separated by a short interval, and during that interval someone else logged into your account on another computer, then we can prove the person who deleted the files was not you. My heartbeat sped up. Mr. Chen, how do you know this? Victor's voice became calm. Because my technical team has already obtained the company server access logs. Standing by the street, I held the phone and felt dizzy. What Victor had obtained was not just access logs. He had obtained the company's lifeline. Ethan, go home now and rest. Tomorrow morning, Wendy will receive the official inspection notice from the Science and Technology Bureau. She will definitely act. Just wait. After hanging up, I stood by the road and watched traffic pass. The sky darkened gradually. Streetlights came on. The city entered another rhythm. I stopped a taxi and went home. When I arrived downstairs, I saw a white sedan parked in the same spot as before. The window rolled down, revealing a woman's face. My mother. Seeing me, she got out and carried a plastic bag over. Ethan. I stood at the entrance, looking at her. We had not seen each other for 3 years. 3 years ago, she divorced my father and married a man in the building materials business. After that, she never returned to this home. She walked to me and handed over the plastic bag. This is medicine for your father. Take it upstairs. I took it and looked down. There were several boxes of blood pressure medicine and one Ong Nyohuang pill. That medicine was not cheap. 700 or 800 yuan per box. I looked up at her. You came the other day. Why didn't you go upstairs? My mother froze, then lowered her head and smoothed her hair. I was afraid your father would feel uncomfortable seeing me. She wore a dark trench coat. Her hair was dyed black. But the wrinkles on her face could not be hidden. 3 years had passed. She looked much older. Holding the plastic bag, I did not know what to say. My mother looked at me and suddenly asked, "At that company did you offend someone?" I froze. "How do you know?" She hesitated, then took a business card from her bag. I took it and looked down. 3 characters were printed on it. Gregory Sue. Below was his company name and phone number. My blood rushed to my head. I looked up at my mother. "You know Gregory Sue?" My expression frightened her. My current husband supplied materials to Gregory Sue's company before. Her voice trembled. "A few days ago, Gregory invited us to dinner. At the table, he mentioned your name. He said you were not very obedient at the company and asked me to advise you." I gripped the card until it bent. My mother stepped back. "Ethan, what's wrong?" I took a deep breath and put the card into my pocket. "Nothing. Mom, go back. I'll take the medicine upstairs." My mother looked at me. Her lips moved, but in the end, she said nothing. She returned to the car, and the white sedan slowly left the neighborhood. I stood at the entrance, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. Gregory Sue. Wendy Fong's brother. Vivian Sue's husband. He had found my mother. Through my mother's current husband, he had found her. He was warning me. I turned and walked into the stairwell, climbing step by step. The voice-activated lights lit up, went out, and lit up again. When I reached home, I unlocked the door. My father was sitting in the living room. The television was on low volume. Seeing me return, he pointed to the coffee table. "Someone called you earlier. Said he was your coworker." I changed shoes, walked over, and picked up the landline. The caller ID was unfamiliar. I called back. It connected after 2 rings. "Hello." A strange man's voice. "Ethan Lin, you have quite a bit of nerve." I held the receiver and said nothing. The man laughed, the sound carrying threat. "You think Victor Chen withdrawing investment can bring me down? You are too naive." At that sentence, I knew who it was. Gregory Sue. "Gregory Sue, why are you calling me?" "Nothing important. Just reminding you." His voice was light, as if talking about something trivial. "Your father's health is poor. Your mother has a new family. Your younger sister is still in college. You carry so much alone. It is not easy." He paused, his tone becoming gentler. "So do not make trouble for yourself. Stay quiet, and you can still live peacefully." My grip on the receiver tightened, knuckles white. "Are you threatening me?" "Not a threat. A kind reminder." Gregory chuckled. "Ethan Lin, look at yourself. A fired little technician. No background. No connections. What do you have to fight me with?" Then he hung up. The busy tone echoed in the receiver. I stood in the living room, fingers trembling slightly. My father came over. "Who was that?" I put the receiver back and turned to him. "It's nothing, Dad. A coworker." My father looked at me once and did not press. He picked up the remote and turned off the television. "Your mother came earlier. She brought medicine." I froze. "She came upstairs?" "No, she had the breakfast shop owner bring it up." My father walked to the window and looked down. "I saw her car." His voice was calm, without emotion. I stood beside him. The streetlights below glowed. Rainwater on the ground reflected orange light. After a long silence, my father suddenly said, "Ethan, if you are tired, don't force yourself. I still have a little savings. Enough for us to get by for a while." I turned and looked at him. His hair was completely white. His back slightly hunched. Wrinkles were deep across his face. Since his stroke 3 years ago, his body had never fully recovered. I patted his shoulder. "Dad, don't worry. I can handle it." He nodded and said nothing more. He returned to his room. After he lay down, I heard a long sigh. I went back to my bedroom and sat on the bed. My phone lit up. Victor had sent several messages. The Science and Technology Bureau inspection notice will be delivered to Wendy Fong's office tomorrow at 9 a.m. The server access logs have been organized. The deletion operation and your file download operation were separated by 40 minutes. During those 40 minutes, your account logged in on another computer. That computer was in Wendy Fong's office. I stared at the messages, heart pounding like a drum. Victor sent one more. "Ethan, come to the company tomorrow at 10. We close the net." I typed one word. "Good." I placed the phone by the bed and lay down. Streetlight passed through the curtain and cast blurry shadows on the ceiling. I closed my eyes. Gregory's words replayed in my head. You think Victor Chen withdrawing investment can bring me down? You are too naive. Why was he so confident? What else did he have? Those questions circled in my mind. Soon, overwhelming exhaustion swallowed them. I turned over and fell into deep sleep. In my dream, I stood before the company's floor-to-ceiling windows on the 18th floor, looking at the city outside. Someone called my name behind me. I turned and saw a blurry figure. The figure walked toward me, reaching out as if to push me. Then I woke. Daylight had already filled the window. I sat up and touched my phone. 7:30 a.m. There were 3 unread messages. Liam, Ethan, Wendy came to the company early this morning. She looks terrible, like she didn't sleep. Olivia, Ethan, the Science and Technology Bureau inspection notice arrived. Wendy lost her temper in her office and scolded the entire technical department. Henry, brother, legal received a lawyer's letter from Chiming Capital this morning. It demands the company provide financial details for the Smart Park project within 3 working days, or legal action will begin. I read all 3 messages. The corner of my mouth slowly lifted. Wendy Fong, you finally panicked. I washed up, cooked porridge for my father, and changed into clean clothes. Before leaving, I stood before the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, but bright. I took a deep breath and walked out. The sunlight outside was good. After yesterday's rain, the air felt especially fresh. I went downstairs and stopped a taxi. To the company. The car entered the main road. I watched scenery fly backward outside the window, fingers tapping lightly on my knee. The phone rang. Victor. Ethan, where are you? On the way. About 20 minutes. Good. Confirm one thing with me. His voice was serious. Are you sure your mother's side will not cause problems? I held the phone and was silent for several seconds. Yes. You're sure? I'm sure. I looked out the window. Gregory Sue thinks he can use my mother to control me. But he does not know that since my mother and father divorced, my younger sister's tuition has always been paid by me. I paused. My mother owes me. Victor laughed softly. Good. Then we win today's battle. The taxi stopped at the office building. I paid and got out, looking up at the building. The glass curtain wall glittered in the sun. I pushed through the revolving door. The lobby air conditioning was strong. Cold air poured from the vent above. The receptionist saw me and opened her mouth, but said nothing. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in and pressed the 18th floor. As the metal doors closed, I heard someone in the lobby make a call. Assistant Fong, Ethan Lin is here again. The elevator rose. It stopped on every floor. The doors opened to empty corridors. At the 18th floor, the doors opened. The atmosphere in the office was completely different from yesterday. No one typed. No one answered calls. Everyone sat at their desks, eyes turning toward me. Wendy's office door was open. Voices came from inside. I walked over and stood at the door. Wendy had her back to the door and was on the phone. Her voice was low but urgent. Brother, can you handle it or not? The Science and Technology Bureau is coming next week, and I have nothing to show them. She paused, listening. What? Victor Chen also sent a lawyer's letter? What exactly is he trying to do? I knocked on the doorframe. Wendy turned. Seeing me, her expression froze. She said into the phone, talk later, and hung up. She put down the phone, hands pressed on the desk, staring at me. Ethan Lin, what exactly do you want? I entered and sat opposite her. I want to negotiate a condition with you. Wendy froze for a second. Then laughed. She leaned back, folded her arms, and looked at me with mockery. You want to negotiate with me? You are a fired employee. What do you have to negotiate with? I did not answer. I took a document from my briefcase and placed it on the table, pushing it to her. Wendy glanced down. Her smile slowly disappeared. It was a copy of Chiming Capital's lawyer's letter. She stared at it, lips pressed tight. What does this have to do with you? A lot. I leaned back, calm. The reason Victor Chen withdrew investment is because the company mishandled a core technical employee. That core technical employee is me. If I am restored to my position, Victor Chen is willing to reconsider investment. Wendy narrowed her eyes. You think I'm a child? She picked up the lawyer's letter and shook it. Victor Chen withdrew because he already wanted to withdraw. You are only his excuse. Her voice cooled. And even if what you say is true, I will never let you return. Who do you think you are? Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that next Monday, the Science and Technology Bureau begins inspection. You have no project results. No technical report. No demo system. Nothing. I pointed at the lawyer's letter. When the Bureau finds out the project is fake and the 8 million yuan subsidy was misappropriated, do you think Gregory Su can protect you? Wendy's expression became very ugly. She stared at me, gripping the arms of her chair. The office was silent for a long time. Then she spoke, voice light but icy. Ethan Lin, you think you won? She opened a drawer, took out a craft paper envelope, and threw it before me. Open it. I picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a stack of photos. I flipped through them one by one. My mother standing outside a high-end residential compound, holding a gift bag. In the next photo, my mother sat at a dinner table with Gregory Su. Beside her sat her current husband. In the next, my mother accepted a thick red envelope. My fingers stopped. Wendy watched my expression. The corner of her mouth slowly lifted. Your mother took money from Gregory Su. Some of the medicine your father takes was bought with Gregory's money. She stood, walked to my side, leaned close to my ear. If I ask Gregory to release these photos, what will your neighbors think of you? What will your father think? Will your younger sister still be able to hold her head up at school? I held the photos and said nothing. Wendy straightened, returned to her seat, and Saturday, Ethan Lin, you wanted to negotiate? Then I'll negotiate too. She raised one finger. You go to Victor Chen and tell him to withdraw the lawyer's letter, reinvest, and you handle the Science and Technology Bureau inspection. Since you wrote the core technical plan, building a demo system should not be hard. She raised a second finger. In exchange, I will not hold you responsible for leaking company materials. Legal will cancel the accusation. She raised a third finger. And Gregory Su will not trouble your family again. The money your mother took does not need to be returned. After saying that, she leaned back and looked at me. How is that condition? Good enough? I sat there, staring at the photos in my hand. In the pictures, my mother's face looked unfamiliar because of the angle. She smiled cautiously, with a kind of humble fear. I placed the photos back into the envelope and put it on the table. Then I looked up at Wendy. You think I will agree? Her smile paused. You refuse? I stood and pushed the envelope back. Wendy Fong, from beginning to end, you got one thing wrong. I looked at her word by word. You thought you grabbed my weakness. But you grabbed the wrong one. I took out my phone, opened my gallery, selected one photo, and showed her the screen. It was a bank transfer record. Wendy leaned closer. Her expression changed instantly. I took back the phone. My mother received 30,000 yuan from Gregory Su. Every transfer is recorded. Wendy stood abruptly. The chair slid back and hit the wall. You monitored your own mother? I shook my head. I did not monitor her. She told me herself. She felt something was wrong after receiving the money and contacted me first. I looked at Wendy's pale face and continued. I asked my mother to keep the 30,000 untouched in one bank card. The transaction record was handed to Victor Chen yesterday as evidence of Gregory Su's suspected bribery. Wendy's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I picked up the envelope on the table, pulled out the photos, and spread them one by one across the desk. You can keep these photos. But let me remind you of one thing. I pointed to Gregory's face in the photo. I already have evidence that Gregory bribed my mother. On the other hand, your mother works for a private company. If her boss learns that her son and daughter are suspected of misappropriating public funds, do you think she can keep her job? Wendy's face was white as paper. She stared at me, disbelief in her eyes. You investigated me? I collected the photos, put them back into the envelope, and placed the envelope into my pocket. You investigated my family. I investigated yours. Fair. I turned toward the door. Wendy called after me. Ethan Lin, you think this means you win? You're too naive. Gregory Su still has a trump card. You have no idea what he's doing. I stopped without turning back. What trump card? Wendy opened her mouth, then seemed to realize something and shut it again. She shook her head, expression strange. I can't say. I returned to her desk and leaned forward. Wendy Fong, you still have a choice. If you cooperate and tell me what Gregory Sue is doing, I can discuss leniency with Victor Chen. Wendy looked up at me. A trace of hesitation flashed in her eyes. But it was quickly replaced by fear. She shook her head hard. No. I can't say. If I say it, I'm finished. Then wait for the Science and Technology Bureau inspection results. I turned toward the door. The moment my hand touched the handle, the office door was pushed open from outside. A man stood at the entrance. He wore a deep gray suit. His hair was carefully combed. A faint smile rested on his face. I recognized him. Gregory Sue. He glanced at me, then walked past me into the office. When Wendy saw him, her whole body seemed drained of strength. She collapsed into the chair. Gregory walked to the desk, picked up the lawyer's letter, glanced at it, then tossed it aside. Then he turned to face me. Ethan Lin, we finally meet. His voice was gentle, like greeting an old friend. I said nothing. Gregory smiled and pulled out a chair. I heard what you said at the door. He crossed his legs and folded his hands over one knee. You spoke very well. Clear logic. Solid evidence. If it were someone else, maybe you really would have frightened them. He tilted his head toward Wendy. But Wan Qing is timid. She scares easily. Then he turned back to me. The smile did not change. But I am not Wan Qing. Your little tricks are useless against me. I stood there and watched him. Gregory carried a very strange aura. Not fierce. Not violent. But a calmness that made people deeply uncomfortable. He looked at me like he was looking at an ant. Ethan, you said you have leverage over me, right? He took out his phone and opened a page, handing it to me. Look at this. I looked down. It was the company internal system login page. I did not understand. Gregory saw my expression and laughed. Look carefully. I looked again. Then my whole body stiffened. The username on the login page was Vivian Sue's account. The password field was already filled in. 6 asterisks. Gregory took back the phone and tapped a few times. Then he turned the screen toward me. Displayed on it was a board resolution document. The document stated, due to poor company operations, the board had decided to initiate bankruptcy liquidation procedures. At the bottom was the company seal. And Vivian Sue's signature. I stared at that signature and felt my blood cool inch by inch. Gregory's voice sounded beside me. I can log into Vivian's account whenever I want. I can get the company seal whenever I want. I can sign Vivian's name whenever I want. He put away the phone, stood, and walked toward me. Ethan Lin, you said you have my leverage. But do you know what I have? He leaned close and lowered his voice. I have the entire company. I stood frozen. Gregory stepped back and adjusted his collar. You think Victor Chen withdrawing investment can defeat me? Navi. The company can enter bankruptcy liquidation. Assets sold off. As an anonymous shareholder, I can still get my share. He laughed. Of course, as the legal representative, Vivian will be held responsible. But what does that have to do with me? I stared at him, voice tight. Vivian Sue is your wife. Gregory's smile faded slightly. A complicated look flashed in his eyes. But it disappeared quickly, replaced by cold calm. Wife? He repeated the word softly and shook his head. Ethan Lin, you know nothing. Don't talk nonsense. He turned to the door. When passing me, he paused. By the way, tell your mother to be careful. Her current husband works at my company. I can make him lose his job at any time. After saying that, he patted my shoulder and left. Only Wendy and I remained in the office. Wendy sat in her chair, hands covering her face, shoulders trembling. I stood still, staring at the doorway, my mind blank. My phone vibrated. Victor Chen had sent a message. Ethan, the Science and Technology Bureau inspection has been moved up to tomorrow morning. Prepare yourself. I stared at the message, finger hovering over the screen, not knowing what to type. Wendy suddenly spoke. Her voice came muffled through her fingers. Ethan Lin, leave. I turned to her. She lowered her hands and looked up. Her eyes were red, but she did not cry. You cannot beat him. Gregory Sue is ruthless. He even dares to destroy Vivian. You are an outsider. He will never take you seriously. She stood, grabbed her briefcase, and stuffed in her phone and files messily. I'm leaving too. I can't stay in this company anymore. She walked toward the door. I followed and grabbed her arm. Wendy, what exactly did Gregory do to Vivian? She looked at me, eyes full of fear. I cannot say. If I say it, he will ruin me. She shook off my hand and hurried out. I stood at the door for a few seconds, then chased her. Wendy had reached the elevator and pressed down. I ran over and blocked her. You must tell me what Gregory did to Vivian. This concerns whether the company can be saved. She looked up, struggle flashing in her eyes. The elevator dinged open. She stepped around me and entered. I followed and pressed close. The doors shut. We stood inside the narrow space. Wendy leaned against the wall, head lowered, long hair covering her face. I watched her, waiting. The elevator reached the first floor. Doors opened. Wendy walked out. I followed. At the entrance of the office building, she suddenly stopped. She turned and looked at me. Ethan, if I tell you, can you guarantee my safety? I nodded. Yes. Wendy took a deep breath. Her lips trembled slightly. She opened her mouth, about to speak. At the entrance, a black car stopped. The window rolled down. Gregory Sue's face appeared. He looked at Wendy, smiling, but the light in his eyes was frighteningly cold. Wanqing. Get in. Wendy's body froze. She looked at Gregory. Then at me. Her lips trembled violently. Her face had no color. Gregory opened the car door and stepped out. Unhurried, he walked toward us. He looked at me once, then put an arm around Wendy's shoulder. Wanqing, you look terrible. Did you not sleep well last night? His voice was gentle, like a brother caring for his sister. But Wendy shook harder. She answered very softly, Gregory patted her shoulder and turned to me. Ethan Lin, my sister is tired. I'll take her home first. We can talk another day. He led Wendy toward the car. Wendy lowered her head and followed obediently. I stood there, watching their backs. When Wendy reached the car door, she suddenly stopped. Gregory lowered his head. What is it? Wendy did not answer. She stood with her back to me, motionless. Gregory's hand rested on her shoulder and patted lightly. Wanqing, don't think too much. Get in. Her body swayed. Then she turned and looked at me. Her lips moved. Her voice was very soft. Almost inaudible. But I heard it. Vivian did not marry Gregory willingly. On the morning of the wedding day, Gregory took her from the hospital. Gregory's smile froze. Wendy did not look at him. She looked at me, tears filling her eyes. Her voice trembled, but every word was clear. Gregory has leverage over Vivian. That leverage is, she did not finish. Gregory grabbed her arm and yanked her into the car. The door slammed shut. The black car screeched out of the parking lot. I stood at the entrance, watching it disappear around the corner. Wendy's final unfinished sentence hung above my head like a blade. Gregory had leverage over Vivian. What was it? I took out my phone to call Victor. My finger had barely touched the dial button when the phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I answered. A woman's voice came through. Weak. As if using all her strength. Ethan Lin. It's Vivian Sue. My heart tightened. President Sue, where are you? Vivian did not answer. Her voice was light, broken. Ethan, listen to me. Whatever Wendy just said, do not tell anyone. Especially not Victor Chen. I froze. Why? The other end was silent for several seconds. Then Vivian said one sentence. It exploded beside my ear like a bomb. Because Victor Chen and Gregory Sue are on the same side. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Vivian's words were ice water poured from head to toe. Victor Chen and Gregory Sue were on the same side? Then every move I made these past few days had all been inside Victor's calculation. President Sue, are you sure? I'm sure. Vivian's voice was weak but clear. Victor Chen knew Gregory 3 years ago. They built this trap together. Victor invested money. Gregory controlled the company. Wendy acted as the white glove between them. You thought Victor was helping you? He is using you to pressure Gregory because Gregory recently tried to break away and work alone. I stood outside the building. Sunlight shone on me, but I felt cold all over. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Because I could not be sure which side you would stand on. Vivian's voice carried bitterness. Ethan, you worked at the company for 3 years. I watched you for 3 years. You are technically strong, honest, hardworking. But I was never sure whether, when facing something big, you would dare fight back. She paused. Now I am sure. I took a deep breath. President Sue, where are you now? I need to see you. The other end was silent for a while. I'm at the South City Maternal and Child Hospital. Inpatient building, 6th floor, room 623. Are you sick? Vivian did not answer. A nurse's voice sounded on the other end, saying she needed to take temperature. Vivian responded quietly, then said into the phone, Ethan, come find me. But do not let anyone know. Especially Victor Chen. The call ended. I stood there, mind spinning. Victor was the one who set the trap. Gregory was the executor. Wendy was the tool. Vivian was the puppet being controlled. Then what was the entire company? What were all the employees? What were the projects I had built, the nights I had stayed up, the overtime I had worked? I sent Victor a message. Mr. Chen, the Science and Technology Bureau inspection has been moved to tomorrow morning. I need to confirm the specific time. Victor replied quickly, 9 a.m. The Bureau will arrive at the company. Prepare yourself. I did not reply. I muted my phone and stopped a taxi. South City Maternal and Child Hospital. The car crossed the city. Leaning against the seat, I replayed everything that happened these past few days. Victor voluntarily called me. Said he was withdrawing because Wendy fired me. Gave me evidence. Helped me analyze the situation. Guided me to find Vivian. Every step was precise. I thought he was a hand reaching out to help me. Now it seemed that beneath that hand, he held a knife. The taxi stopped at the hospital. I paid and got out. The inpatient building was behind the main building, past a small courtyard planted with osmanthus trees. The 6th floor was the obstetrics and gynecology ward. The corridor was quiet. The air smelled of disinfectant and flowers. I stopped outside room 623 and knocked gently. Come in. I opened the door. The room was small. 2 beds. The one by the window was empty. Vivian sat against the bed near the door. She wore light blue hospital clothes. Her face was pale. Her eyes slightly sunken. An 4 catheter was in the back of her left hand. An infusion bottle hung beside her. I pulled a chair to the bedside and Saturday, President Sue. Vivian looked at me and gave a faint smile. You are still willing to call me President Sue. You are my boss. She shook her head. I'm no longer your boss. 3 days ago, Gregory used documents signed under my name to remove me from every position. He is now the company's actual controller. I stared at her. Wendy said you did not marry Gregory willingly. The smile disappeared from Vivian's face. She lowered her eyes, looking at the thin tube taped to her hand. She was silent for a long, long time. A cart rolled past the corridor. Its wheels made a faint creaking sound. When I was 23, I worked in Shenzhen and met a man. Her voice was very soft. I thought he loved me. I became pregnant with his child. Then he disappeared. I gave birth alone and raised the child until 2. The child became sick. I had no money for treatment. He died. Her fingers gently rubbed the tape beside the 4 needle. Later, I came to this city and met Gregory Sue. He treated me well. He helped me find work and gave me money. I thought I had met a good man. The day he proposed, I agreed. But on the morning we were supposed to register the marriage, I regretted it. I told him I did not want to get married. He dragged me into the car and showed me a paternity test. Vivian looked up at me. There were no tears in her eyes. Only deep, deep exhaustion. The child who died was Gregory Sue's. He had known me since Shenzhen. He began designing my life back then. The child was deliberately made to happen. And the child's death was part of his plan. I sat there, feeling my fingers tremble. Why would he do that? Because he needed leverage. Vivian's voice was calm. He valued my business ability. But he did not want me to have a choice. The child's death records, the paternity test, and the high-interest debt I borrowed to treat the child if he released them, my life would be ruined. The ward was silent for a long time. I slowly spoke. So all these years, he has been controlling you. Yes. Vivian closed her eyes. I built the company. I brought in the projects. I managed operations. But all the money passed through his hands. Wendy was his spy. He reviewed every number in every report. She opened her eyes and looked at me. Ethan, you asked why I approved Wendy firing you. Because Wendy told him you were trying to check the accounts of the Smart Park project. He ordered Wendy to get you out quickly. If you stayed in the company longer, you would definitely discover the accounting problem. I took a deep breath. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? Because anything I tell anyone, Gregory finds out. He monitored my phone chat records. Vivian lifted her phone. This phone had monitoring software installed by him. Every message, he could see. Yesterday, I asked my housekeeper to call you. Her phone was tracked by him. After that call, she lost her job. I gripped the armrest, knuckles white. And now that you're telling me this, he will know too. He may not. Vivian looked outside at the sunlight. This morning, after he removed me from every position, he said I no longer needed to manage the company. He turned off the monitoring software on my phone. He may not know I called you. She turned back to me. Ethan, what I said on the phone is true. Victor Chen and Gregory Su are partners. Victor invested because Gregory brought him in. The two split duties. Gregory controlled people. Victor controlled money. But now Gregory wants to swallow the company alone, and Victor does not agree. So they fell out. All the fragments in my mind finally locked together. So Victor came to me not to help me, but to use me against Gregory. Yes. Vivian nodded. Victor needs you to expose the Smart Park project. The Science and Technology Bureau will investigate the company. That way, Gregory can no longer hide the financial tricks. Then Victor can use the investment agreement clauses to take control of the company in a legitimate way. I stood and walked around the ward twice. What about Wendy? Does she know? Partly. Vivian gave a bitter smile. She thinks she is Gregory's biological sister, so she can follow him forever and enjoy the benefits. But she doesn't know that if Gregory gets into trouble, the first person he sacrifices will be her. Every financial trick went through Wendy's hands. All responsibility points to her. I stopped. So this morning, Gregory dragged Wendy away because he was afraid she would tell me the truth. Yes. And once Wendy realizes she will be sacrificed, she may turn. That is what Gregory fears most. I sat again and looked at Vivian. President Su, what do you want me to do? Vivian looked at me with something I had never seen in her eyes. It was like the light in my father's eyes after his stroke when he held my hand and said, Ethan, you've grown up. Tomorrow morning, when the Science and Technology Bureau comes, Victor wants you at the company. He wants you to publicly accuse the Smart Park project of being fake. But if you go, you will be dragged into his fight with Gregory. No matter which of them wins, you will be the sacrifice. She spoke word by word. So you cannot go. I was silent, watching the fluid drip from the infusion bottle. What about the company? Vivian shook her head. The company is already finished. Gregory began transferring assets last year. The company's accounts are empty. Even if Victor takes over in the end, all he gets is a shell. She looked at me, voice soft. Ethan, you are only 27. You have skill and ability. You still have your father to take care of. Leave this mud pit. Start over. That is what you should do now. I sat there for a long time without speaking. Sunlight slanted into the ward and cast a warm yellow patch on the floor. A withered osmanthus leaf drifted in from outside and landed on the windowsill. I stood. President Su, I won't go to the company tomorrow. Vivian's lips curved slightly. But. I looked into her eyes. I will not leave this mud pit. I am going to drag Gregory Su and Victor Chen into it together. Let both of them sink. Vivian's smile froze. Are you insane? I'm not. I walked to the window. You said the company accounts are empty, Gregory has been transferring assets, and Victor wants to take over. If the Bureau discovers the Smart Park project is fake, not only will Wendy be held responsible, Gregory as an anonymous shareholder will be implicated. And if Victor is proven to have known beforehand but failed to report it, he also bears joint responsibility. I turned to her. You said Victor and Gregory are partners. Then if we can make the Bureau find evidence of benefit transfers between them, neither can run. Vivian stared at me, lips trembling. Where will you get evidence? I don't have it. But Wendy has it. She has been beside Gregory for years. She must have kept something. This morning, she wanted to tell me, but Gregory dragged her away. If I can find her and make her talk, everything becomes easier. Vivian was silent for a long time. Do you know where Wendy is? No, but I know where Gregory is. I took out my phone and opened the business card my mother gave me. Gregory's building materials company is in North City Industrial Park. There is a high chance he took Wendy there. Vivian was about to speak when the ward door opened. A nurse stood there and looked at me. Then she said to Vivian, "Ms. Sue, your guardian is here to take you home." Vivian's face changed instantly. I turned toward the door. A man came out from behind the nurse. He wore a light gray jacket, was thin, and wore black-rimmed glasses. His gaze passed me and landed on Vivian. A faint smile sat at the corner of his mouth. "Wife, I'm here to take you home." Vivian's hand gripped the sheet tightly, knuckles white. I stood in front of the bed and looked at him. "Gregory Sue?" The man looked at me for several seconds and smiled. "You are Ethan Lynn? You look younger than in the photos." He walked around me toward the bed and reached out to support Vivian. "Come on. The car is downstairs." Vivian did not move. She looked at him. The fear in her eyes was obvious, but her voice was strangely calm. "Gregory, you locked me at home for 7 days. Today, I finally had a nurse help me call the police. Do you think the police will let you take me away?" Gregory's smile paused. Then he took a sheet of paper from his pocket, unfolded it, and handed it to her. "Call the police?" He shook his head. "Look at this. A voluntary discharge statement, signed by you this morning. When the police come and see your own signature, who do you think they will believe?" Vivian stared at the paper, her face as pale as the sheet. Gregory put it away and reached for her arm. "All right. Stop making trouble. We'll talk at home." I stepped forward and grabbed Gregory's wrist. "She is not going anywhere." Gregory turned and looked at me, eyes cooling. "Ethan Lynn, I advise you to let go." I did not. At the ward door, the nurse had already left. Footsteps sounded in the corridor, growing closer. Then 2 men in black T-shirts appeared at the door. Both were broad-shouldered and expressionless. Gregory looked at me, the corner of his mouth lifting. "I brought people. Do you think you can stop me?" I released his wrist and took 1 step back. Gregory thought I had backed down. He bent to help Vivian. At the moment he bent down, I suddenly pulled my phone from my pocket, opened an audio recording, and turned the volume to maximum. Wendy Fong's voice filled the ward. "Vivian did not marry Gregory willingly. On the morning of the wedding day, Gregory took her from the hospital. Gregory has leverage over Vivian. That leverage is..." Gregory froze. He slowly straightened and turned to look at me. For the first time, real panic appeared in his eyes. "You recorded it?" I held up the phone. "I recorded what Wendy said outside the office building. This recording has been backed up 3 times. 1 copy on my friend's computer. 1 in cloud storage. And 1 I just sent as an attachment to the City Economic Investigation Detachment's reporting email." Gregory's face changed completely. "You son of a..." and I interrupted him. The conversation I just had with Vivian in this ward was recorded from beginning to end on another phone. How you designed Vivian, how you caused her child's death, and how you used those things to control her, everything is in the recording. I shook the phone. "You brought 2 men. What can they stop?" Gregory stood before the bed, chest rising and falling violently. The 2 men at the door exchanged looks, unsure whether to enter or retreat. Vivian sat against the bed, looking at me, her eyes red. Gregory stared at me and said word by word, "Ethan Lynn, you will not leave this hospital tonight." "I do not need to leave tonight." I put the phone back in my pocket. "I already called the police. They arrive in 20 minutes. Gregory Sue, you have 2 choices. 1. Go to the Economic Investigation Detachment and cooperate. 2. I ask the nurse to call police now and report illegal detention, extortion, forged company documents, and misappropriation of subsidy funds. Together, that is enough to keep you inside for a long time." Gregory's hand clenched and unclenched. The ward was so quiet we could hear the medicine drip from the infusion bottle. Then Gregory suddenly laughed. His laugh was strange. No longer that calm smile that controlled everything. It sounded closer to despair. "Ethan Lynn, you think you won?" He slowly walked to the window. "I will tell you something. Wendy Fong is already on a plane heading south. The ledger in her hand, I made her take it with her. You catch me alone? What use is that? The money. The accounts. None of them are under my name anymore." My heart sank. "You said Wendy left?" "Yes. This morning, when I dragged her into the car, I was sending her to the airport. Gregory turned to look at me. You really thought I would lock Wendy up? I bought her a plane ticket, a new ID, and 1 million yuan in cash. She is the kind of woman who follows whoever pays more. I looked at him. Gregory came close and patted my shoulder, lowering his voice. Ethan, you found 1 point. But you did not find the whole line. Most of Victor Chen's investment has already been transferred overseas. Even if I go in, the money cannot be recovered. When the time comes, who suffers? He stepped back and adjusted his jacket collar. Vivian is the legal representative. I am an anonymous shareholder. All the company's debts and holes are under Vivian's name. You report me? Fine. Vivian goes in with me. He turned and walked toward the door. At the entrance, he stopped and glanced back at Vivian. Wife, rest well. I'll wait for you to come back. Then he left with the 2 men. The ward went quiet again. Vivian buried her face in her hands, shoulders trembling slightly. I stood there, feeling the heat in my blood gradually cool. Gregory was right. I had recordings. I reported him. I had leverage. But if Wendy had truly run away with the ledger, if the money had truly been transferred, the one roasting over the fire in the end would be Vivian. She was the legal representative. All accounts and documents were signed in her name. I walked to the bed and Saturday, President Sue. Vivian lowered her hands and looked up. She did not cry. Her eyes were dry. But her face was frighteningly pale. Ethan, leave. Her voice was very soft. You have done enough. Leave the rest to me. I looked at her for several seconds. Then stood, took out my phone, and dialed a number. The call connected. Mr. Chen, it's Ethan Lin. Tomorrow morning Science and Technology Bureau inspection. I'm ready. But I have one demand. Victor sounded slightly surprised. What demand? At the inspection site, in front of everyone, announce that you are adding more investment. The amount does not need to be large. 1 million yuan is enough. Victor was silent for a while. Additional investment? What do you want that for? Nothing. I gripped the phone. Just do it. Otherwise, I will not appear at the company tomorrow. The other end was silent for a long time. Then Victor laughed softly. All right. I agree. The call ended. Vivian looked at me, confused. Why do you want him to add investment? 1 million changes nothing. I looked out the window. The sunset was sinking. The sky was dyed orange-red. It cannot change the situation. But it can change one thing. I turned back to her. When news spreads that Victor Chen added more investment, Wendy will know in the south. She thinks Gregory was caught, the company collapsed, and the money is gone. But if she hears Victor is still investing, she will wonder whether Gregory lied to her. Whether the money is still there. I paused. She will come back. Vivian stared blankly at me. Her lips moved several times before she managed one sentence. How can you be sure? I'm not. But Wendy is greedy and afraid. She fears Gregory. But she fears having no money even more. If she thinks she was cheated, she will return to settle accounts with Gregory. As long as she returns, I have a way to make her talk. Outside, the sunset dyed the entire sky red. I looked at Vivian. President Sue, tomorrow morning at 9, I will go to the company. You stay here and rest. The police will arrive in 20 minutes. They will protect you. I walked toward the door. Vivian called me from behind. Ethan. I stopped without turning. Do you hate me? Her voice was very soft. I approved Wendy firing you. I did nothing. I stood at the door, hand on the handle. I did. I opened the door and walked out. The corridor was quiet. Sunset entered through the window at the far end, coloring the floor warm yellow. I strode toward the stairwell. Footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. That night, when I returned home, my father was sitting in the living room watching the news. The news was reporting that the City Science and Technology Bureau had launched a special inspection. The picture showed the bureau building. The anchor said the inspection focused on several high-tech companies and their use of subsidy funds. My hand paused while changing shoes. My father looked at me and asked nothing. He only said, "Dinner is still warm in the kitchen." I went to the kitchen, filled a bowl of porridge, and slowly drank at the dining table. My phone lay on the table, screen constantly lit. Liam messaged, "Wendy did not come to the company today. Legal says she asked for leave, but HR checked and there is no leave record." Olivia messaged, the technical department had meetings all day. Daniel Zhang was called into Wendy's office for half an hour and looked terrible when he came out. Henry messaged, "Legal received an anonymous email about violations in the Smart Park project approval process. The IP address came from inside the company." I read them one by one, then placed the phone face down. After finishing the porridge, I went into my father's room and tucked his blanket. His eyes were closed, breathing evenly. I stood beside the bed for a while, then exited and gently closed the door. Back in my bedroom, I opened my computer. On the desktop was a folder containing everything I had organized over the past 3 days. Wendy's forged project documents. Screenshots of server access logs. Backup recordings from Vivian's ward. The bank statement showing my mother received 30,000 yuan. I copied everything into an encrypted archive and uploaded it to cloud storage. After that, I sent Victor one final message. "Mr. Chen, I will arrive at 9 tomorrow morning." Victor replied, "Good. My people will be there too." I turned off the computer and lay on the bed. The cracks on the ceiling were still there. Exactly the same as 3 days ago. But some things had changed. 3 days ago, I was kicked out of the company, and no one spoke. After what I said in Wendy's office this morning, the technical department's chat had exploded. Several people added me on WeChat and said they were willing to testify for me. I turned over and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would be a hard battle. But I was no longer afraid. The next morning at 7, I was already awake when the alarm rang. I washed up, changed clothes, and left breakfast and a note for my father. "Dad, I have something today. I'll be back tonight." When I left, the sunlight was good. Downstairs, the breakfast shop owner was frying dough sticks. Smoke drifted in the wind. Seeing me, she waved. "Little Ethan, early again?" I bought 2 dough sticks and paid. The owner lowered her voice. "Your father went out yesterday afternoon. He stood downstairs for a while. I later persuaded him to go back." My bite paused. "He went out?" "Only stood there for 10 minutes or so, like he was waiting for someone." The owner wiped her hands. "Your mother's car also stopped outside the neighborhood yesterday afternoon. Maybe your father saw it." I nodded and said nothing. After eating, I stopped a taxi. To the company. The car crossed the morning city. The plane trees along the road had begun turning yellow. My phone lit up. "Victor, I arrived." I replied, "I'm on the way." At 8:50, I got out downstairs. 2 cars were parked at the entrance. One black Mercedes. One silver-gray business van with a municipal government plate. I recognized the Mercedes plate. Victor Chen's. I pushed through the revolving door. There were more people in the lobby than usual. 2 men in dark suits stood by the front desk, wearing Science and Technology Bureau badges. Several people in suits sat on the lobby sofa, speaking quietly. Victor sat in the center, wearing a deep blue suit, speaking with a middle-aged man in glasses. Seeing me, he nodded slightly. I walked over. "Mr. Chen." Victor stood and patted my shoulder. "Ethan, ready?" "Ready." He looked at me for 2 seconds, then introduced me to the man with glasses. "Director Wang, this is Ethan Lin, the core technical lead of the Smart Park project I mentioned." Director Wang stood and shook my hand. "Mr. Lin, the Science and Technology Bureau is here today to inspect the progress of the Smart Park project. You are the project lead. Please cooperate with our work." "Of course." The elevator opened. A group entered. Victor walked beside me and lowered his voice. "Wendy is not at the company today. Gregory is not here either. But Vivian is here. She is waiting for you on the 18th floor." I turned to look at him. Victor's face revealed nothing. The elevator stopped at 18. The doors opened. The office was strangely quiet. Everyone sat at their desks. No one typed. All eyes landed on us. Vivian stood in the center of the office. She wore a white blouse, hair tied back. Her face remained pale, but her eyes were calm. On her left wrist was still a white medical adhesive patch where the 4 had been removed. Seeing me, she nodded slightly. People from the Science and Technology Bureau spread out and began reviewing project documents, financial statements, and technical materials. Director Wang took 2 staff members into the conference room and asked the technical department to bring computers and demonstrate the system. Vivian walked to me and spoke very quietly. "Ethan, Wendy came back." I froze. What? At 6 this morning, she sent me a message. She said after arriving in the south, she discovered the bank card only had 50,000 yuan. Gregory lied to her. My heartbeat quickened. Where is she? Vivian glanced toward the end of the corridor. In Wendy's office. She arrived this morning and told no one. Not even Gregory knows. I immediately turned and walked to the end of the corridor. Vivian followed. Wendy's office door was closed. Through the window, I saw her sitting in her chair, head lowered. A pile of documents lay across her desk. I knocked. No response. I pushed the door open. Wendy lifted her head. Seeing me, her expression changed, but quickly returned to calm. Heavy dark circles sat beneath her eyes. Her hair was messy. She looked completely different from the polished CEO assistant from yesterday. You came back. Yes. Wendy gave a bitter smile. Gregory gave me a bank card. Said there was 1 million in it and told me to hide in the south for a while. When I got to the airport and tried to withdraw money for a ticket, I found only 50,000 inside. She threw the bank card onto the desk. He lied to me. I sat opposite her. Wendy, how much do you know about what Gregory has done? She looked up at me with exhausted honesty. Ask. At this point, I have nothing left to hide. Where exactly is the 8 million subsidy money from the Smart Park project? Gregory transferred 6 million away. The remaining 2 million was taken by Victor Chen's people. I have transfer records for 3 million. Gregory moving money from the company account to his building materials company account. I looked at her. Why did you keep that? Wendy smiled. I did so much for him. Of course I needed to keep something for protection. Otherwise, one day, when he sold me out, would have no way to protect myself. She opened the drawer beneath the desk, took out a craft paper file bag, and pushed it to me. Everything is inside. Transfer records. Forged project documents. Authorization letters signed by Gregory. And detailed records of benefit transfers between him and Victor Chen. I took the file bag and opened it. Dense documents filled it. Every page was stamped with the company seal or finance seal. I stood and walked to the door. President Su, please invite Director Wang here. Vivian looked at me once, then turned toward the conference room. Wendy sat in the chair, looking at me. Ethan Lin, if I give you these things, can you keep me out of prison? I walked back and looked at her. Wendy Fong, you did wrong, so you must take responsibility. But if you actively cooperate with the investigation and provide evidence, you can receive leniency. Wendy lowered her head for a long time. Then she looked up and gave a smile uglier than crying. Fine. Better than being sold by Gregory. Director Wang entered with 2 bureau staff members. I stood and handed him the file bag. Director Wang, these are the complete materials for the Smart Park project. They include the process of project fraud, the destination of the subsidy funds, and signed authorizations from related parties. Director Wang opened the file bag and flipped several pages. His expression became more and more serious. He looked up at me. Where did these materials come from? Provided voluntarily by Ms. Wendy Fong. Director Wang looked at Wendy. Wendy nodded. I am willing to cooperate and explain everything I know. Director Wang turned and said something to his colleague. That person took out a phone and began making calls. Director Wang turned back to me. Mr. Lin, thank you for your cooperation. The Economic Investigation Detachment will take over this case later. For the next 2 hours, the entire 18th floor was occupied by the Science and Technology Bureau and the Economic Investigation Detachment that arrived afterward. People went in and out of the conference room. Files were carried out in stacks, photographed, and sealed. Wendy was invited into a separate office to give a statement. 2 computers from the technical department were taken as fixed evidence. Victor stood in the lobby area, watching everything through the glass wall. I walked over and stood beside him. Mr. Chen. He turned. His expression was complicated. Ethan, you are more capable than I thought. You flatter me. Victor looked around, lowered his voice. The recording of your call with Vivian and Wendy's statement both include my dealings with Gregory. From the beginning, did you plan to drag me in too? I did not answer. Victor laughed and shook his head. I have been investing for years. I did not expect to fall to a little technician. I smiled too. Mr. Chen, you said something once. Some people's value is not something others can casually deny. Today, I return that sentence to you. Victor looked at me. After several seconds, he extended his hand. Ethan Lynn, I admit defeat. I did not shake his hand. I turned and walked toward Vivian. Vivian stood by the window, looking down at the street. I stood beside her. What happens to the company? I asked. Vivian was silent for a while. Liquidation. There is no money left in the accounts, and a lot of debt. But at least the truth is out. Gregory and Victor will be held responsible. Wendy cooperated with the investigation and can receive leniency. As the legal representative, I also have to accept investigation. She turned to look at me. Ethan, do you regret getting involved? I looked out the window. Sunlight shone across the traffic on the overpass, making everything bright. No, Vivian smiled faintly and patted my shoulder. Just like she had 3 years ago when I first joined the company. Then will you consider starting over with me? I turned to her. Vivian looked out the window. Her voice was soft but steady. The company is gone. But I am still here. I want to build a new company. Smaller. More practical. No fake accounts. No subsidy fraud. No messy schemes. Do you want to join? I stood beside her, watching sunlight fall across her pale face. What about salary? Vivian turned to me. The corner of her mouth curved. Market rate. Double. I smiled too. 3 months later. Autumn had arrived. Plane tree leaves lay across both sides of the road. I parked my bicycle downstairs at the new company, locked it, and carried breakfast upstairs. The elevator doors opened. At the end of the corridor, the office lights were already on. Vivian sat at a workstation reading documents. Before her was a cup of steaming coffee. She had gained a little weight compared with 3 months ago. Her face also had more color. Seeing me enter, she lifted her chin slightly. We have 2 interviews today. Help me check the technical side. Sure. I placed breakfast on the table and opened my computer. On the desktop was the requirement document for the new project. The client was a cross-border e-commerce company. The project was not large, but the requirements were clear, and the schedule was controllable. It could not compare with the old multi-million yuan projects. But it was clean. My phone lit up. Olivia sent a message. Ethan, I arrived this afternoon. Dinner together tonight? I replied, sure. Olivia joined the new company last month, handling operations. Liam stayed at the old company. That side had changed owners and was starting from scratch. Henry went to another law firm. Occasionally, he still popped up in the group chat, sharing progress on the Economic Investigation Detachment's case. Gregory Sue's case had entered prosecution. He was charged with misappropriation of public funds, illegal detention, forged company documents, and involved amounts exceeding 8 million yuan. Victor Chen was also under investigation for benefit transfers and commercial bribery. Because Wendy Fong actively cooperated and provided key evidence, she received lenient treatment and was now out on bail pending trial. I heard she was preparing to take the accounting certification exam and wanted to find a proper job in the future. I sat opposite Vivian and opened the local news on my phone. There was a short article. The City Science and Technology Bureau had completed a special inspection. 3 companies were found to have irregularities in subsidy fund usage and had been transferred to the Economic Investigation Department. The article did not name the company. But everyone in the industry knew which one it meant. Vivian put down her coffee. Wendy called me yesterday. What did she say? She said thank you. Vivian smiled faintly. She said that when she followed Gregory, she was afraid every night. Now, even with a case on her back, she can at least sleep peacefully. I drank soy milk and said nothing. Vivian looked at me. What about you? Can you sleep peacefully now? I leaned back in my chair and thought. Yes. Vivian nodded and lowered her head to continue reading documents. I opened my work email. There was one email from an unfamiliar address. I clicked it. A.R. Sum. The name on the attachment was familiar. Chen Mo. A young man from the technical department who had once stayed up all night with me. His email said, Ethan, I heard your new company is hiring. Can I come? I can't stay at the old company anymore. I want a change of environment. I replied, come. Interview tomorrow morning. After sending the email, I put down the phone and looked out the window. Autumn sunlight entered through the glass. Warm. On the street below, people came and went. A vendor selling candied hawthorn pushed his cart past. Vivian stood and walked to the coffee machine for water. She looked back at me. Ethan, interview those 2 people for me this afternoon. Okay. Dinner with everyone tonight. Don't be late. I know. She carried the coffee back to her workstation and lowered her head to continue reading. The office was quiet. Only keyboard tapping and the sound of pages turning remained. I opened the technical architecture diagram for the new project. In the blank space, I wrote the first line of design thought. Sunlight fell on the desk. On the keyboard. On my fingers. Everything started over. That's all for today's story. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment.